I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Ramisha Shade. Thanks for checking us out on our Fox 26 YouTube page. You know what time it is. Time to see if there's any tropical trouble going on out there with our tropical forecast, which we update daily, and we let you know the latest of what's happening across the Atlantic Basin, the Pacific Basin. Of course, hurricane season still going on, and we've still got a little bit of action out there. The good news with Tropical Storm Karl is the fact that it has gotten a little bit weaker just before a likely landfall in southern Mexico. So here's the latest as of the 4 p.m. advisory. We've got Karl with maximum sustained winds around 40 miles per hour, movement fairly slow to the south-southwest around 5 miles per hour, and pressure right at 1,003 millibars. Now, Karl has been encountering what we call shear. That's kind of a change in direction of that wind with height, or change in wind speed with height, and that is causing this system to kind of get torn apart. So basically, it's not really going to strengthen much before it makes landfall. In fact, it may weaken a little bit. So at this point, we are anticipating Tropical Storm Karl to either be a weak minimal tropical storm tonight as it makes landfall along the southern coast of Mexico, or it could actually weaken to a depression before it makes landfall. So that would be better news for folks in Mexico in the path. But regardless of whether it makes landfall as a tropical depression or a tropical storm, it is still going to produce tremendous amounts of rain. We're talking about 2 to 5 inches of rain likely, but there could be some isolated amounts up to 10 inches for parts of Mexico. So definitely dealing with the threat for some flooding here, some mudslides. So we will continue to watch this closely. But by 1 a.m. early Saturday morning, it's likely already making landfall, and it will rapidly weaken because it will be moving over some mountainous terrain across portions of Mexico, and that will weaken it pretty quickly. I think by the time it starts to get close to the southern portion of Mexico, it will likely dissipate, and that's going to be most likely by Saturday night. So Karl will be short-lived. We won't have to talk about Karl much longer, but for now, we do still have a few issues to deal with. And for one, we've got that tropical storm warning still to the east of Veracruz, or we could still have some wind gusts that could be tropical storm force. And of course, the bigger threat, as I've been mentioning, would be that heavy rainfall. So here's the bottom line with Karl. Karl should reach the coast of southern Mexico late tonight as a weak tropical storm, or it may weaken to a tropical depression. But regardless, there will still be impacts because Karl could bring up to 10 inches of rain for parts of Mexico, including Veracruz. So certainly a lot of rain could lead to some flash flooding, water rescues, water covering roads in portions of Mexico. So it's still going to be a dangerous situation. So flash flooding and mudslides will be the biggest threats across portions of southern Mexico before we get rid of Karl, which likely will happen late Saturday night as it dissipates. So good news there. We won't have to worry about Karl for too much longer, but we have another system in the far east Atlantic that we are tracking. So we are getting to the point of the year where these tropical cyclones have a lower chance of developing, but they're still developing, and they have the potential to develop. We do have a tropical wave in the far east Atlantic now, so not quite a tropical cyclone yet. And there's only about a 10% shot that this will bubble up, strengthen into a tropical system over the next 2 to 5 days. So very, very low chance. It's not in a favorable environment, but there is an area here of some fairly disorganized showers and storms, and movement is off to the west-northwest, as I mentioned, in the far east Atlantic. This is west of that western coast of Africa, so it's got a long way to go to make it anywhere close to us. So overall, I'm not expecting this system to get anywhere close to the Caribbean or close to the Gulf, but of course we'll continue to watch it if it survives, but only a 10% chance for that happening over the next 48 hours. And only a 10% chance of that happening through the next 5 days. So other than this one system, this one tropical wave here that we're monitoring, the rest of the Atlantic looking pretty good as we gear up to go into the weekend. So things are fairly quiet out in the Atlantic, and guess what? They are even more quiet out in the Pacific. In fact, for the Pacific, we're not expecting any activity over the next few days. But if that tropical wave that I just showed to you does develop, only a 10% chance that it will do so. But if it happens to develop, the next name on the list would be Lisa. And we'd have Martin, Nicole, Owen, Paula, and all the way down to Walter shelter. But of course, since we are starting to get closer to the end of October and then eventually into November, my guess is that we're not going to have to deal with using the rest of those names. We could have a few more systems to develop, but overall the chances, especially the second half of October and into November, much lower. Speaking of the Eastern Pacific, I told you earlier there was nothing going on here, and in fact here is a quick peek. No areas of interest here. In fact, for the Eastern Pacific, no tropical cyclones expected for the next couple of days. So very good news there. We've had quite a few systems in this part of the world for this hurricane season, so it's nice to see things on the quiet side. Let's check out our tropical climatology, and as I've been mentioning to you, by the time we get to the second half of October, notice any chance for those tropical cyclones, whether it be tropical depression, tropical storm, or hurricane, really starts to decrease historically. So there's still a possibility that it could happen, but the chances of it happening are much, much lower. So as we get into the last few weeks of October, November especially, those chances that we'll have to deal with any direct impacts from a tropical system on the low side. Of course, we did have the peak of hurricane season around September 10th, but that time is rolling on. So we are moving further and further away from September 10th, and we are getting closer to the end of hurricane season. So I definitely hope we can escape without any major threats here across Southeast Texas through the end of hurricane season. But of course, you know, if anything pops up, if anything happens, you will be the first to know. We've got your tropical update daily, and of course, if we get anything headed our way, we will start to do these updates more frequently. And also, if you need more weather, if you need more information on the go, make sure you have our Fox 26 weather app downloaded. Definitely something important to have on your phone or your tablet. You can always pull that up. You can find your latest forecast. If you've got a heavy downpour over you, you can pull out that radar and you can find out where it is tracking. So definitely head to the App Store if you haven't already and download that Fox 26 weather app. Also, you can check me out on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Ramisha Shade TV, Ramisha Shade Weather, and at Ramisha Shade. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And of course, over the weekend, we will still do our tropical updates. We'll have the latest for you. Hopefully things will stay on the quiet side, but if not, then we will have the latest on what's happening in the tropics for you over the coming days. Have a great weekend.